K.C. Colwell, how you doing?
I'm bad.
Not bad?
Yeah.
I ran out of things to say. K.C., how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yourself?
I'm doing good. It's been fun rewatching and reliving all of the stuff that happened at Lightning Lap this year because it was a really cool year.
Yeah, it was definitely a little different year. Yeah, I mean, a lot happened. It was probably the busiest, our kind of Lightning Lap crew's ever been down there. Even though the actual cars we had was kind of fewer, but we had a lot of like special things going on. So it was just different.
If you had to pick one highlight.
I mean, I'm still kind of like pinching myself that they even let me like drive that Garage 56 car around the parking lot.
It's a good highlight.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Highlight. I mean, I didn't drive it very fast, but just to even kind of tool around at the pace I did was pretty sweet. Aside
from the specialty vehicles, let's call them, that we had there, you drove a pretty nice crop of vehicles: Corvette E-Ray, Porsche GT3 Manthey Racing, Porsche GT3 RS. Looking at this group of cars, what are you thinking about before you hop in any of them?
The biggest thing was getting up to speed in the 3RS in the high speed stuff, just because it makes so much downforce, and to get a good lap and to exploit it, you have to be going a lot faster in the high speed stuff than normal, and well, I wouldn't say the normal, but you just have to be going faster, and that always takes time. So it's each day you kind of like pick away at it, and yeah.
Before we get to the high speed stuff, which is weird to say, let's talk about the Corvette E-Ray, because that's a very fast car in its own right.
Absolutely, yeah, very fast, and tons of straight line power, and the hybrid system, the way you kind of deploy it to get like maximum power and maximum speed on the straights is interesting, and you can tell it's I mean, VIR's Grand is kind of about as large of a track as you can do to exploit to its maximum. I mean, if longer tracks, you'd really have to study and figure out where to
deploy it, right?
Yeah, deploy it, yeah.
So before we start watching the lap, a little caveat: there was a lap timer error on this lap, so we moved the start-stop line a little bit earlier for the Corvette specifically, just to make sure the lap time was correct. We did the same thing with all the other vehicles just to see if it affected their lap times. It didn't, so you'll see that in this video.
And that was totally my fault. I just had the lap timers that we run in the car display the actual lap time, but I had set the start finish earlier because I just set it earlier, and wherever you put it on the straight, it shouldn't make too much of a difference. And in fact, the GM guys, the start finish they use, and you can see all their videos online. The start finish they use is
way back, right?
It's like basically in front of the garages, and this one's where about the old start finish was.
Well,
but anyway, but like I said, it doesn't. I mean, that it'll definitely do that lap.
So the E-Ray is like a Z06 body, hybrid powertrain, tiny battery that you basically have to selectively deploy. Is that right?
Yep, correct. Yeah, so it's kind of down by your right knee. And
the button is.
Yeah, the button is to deploy it, and basically, so this first part of the lap, it's in the like maximum harvest mode kinda, and you can see like I don't normally take a line that wide, but that was it's just like using the front axle drive, just keeping it straighter seemed to help it there, but.
What do you think about the sound?
Sounds interesting because it's like small block V8, and then kind of like a little bit of like I don't know, like Tron bike in the background.
I see you reaching for the button now.
Yeah, so I'm reaching for the button. So there are a few different ways to do it, so I gave it a short burst there, and then basically after we get through the S's and this off camber. I'll turn it back on after Oak Tree, and then just leave it on for the rest of the lap.
So it's this really tiny battery and a motor driving the front wheels, so it is less effective. What was it, above 120 or 130?
Yeah, it's like there's like a high speed mark. I actually think it's like above 150.
150,
it
okay.
Cuts off completely.
Oh, really? Okay, wow.
Like it declutches.
Yeah.
But you know, and it'll harvest here in all these corners, and you know, and then but now I'm getting maximum from here for the rest of the lap, and that makes a little bit of sense because, you know, the first part of the track is all pretty high speed, and then this is a lot of like lower speed, a lot of braking, accelerating, a bit more technical. So you know, it's all about maximizing your speed at the end of any little straight.
How's the traction with the driven front wheels? What does that feel like in a Corvette? Oh, I like the Scott Speed line too. I call that the Jim Merrill line.
Jim Merrill. Yeah, Jim used to do that. So that was kind of for him. But I mean, it makes sense. You're not all the way off. But
it works. Track limits, right?
Yeah.
But the traction.
The traction on the front, you can feel when the motor starts adding, you know, like drive force and torque, and you can definitely feel it in the steering, and it basically, it's like, okay, it's like, all right, got to get this thing straight, like straighten it up, and yeah.
Now, how'd this feel versus the Z06 from the year before?
Yeah, you can see it right there. I lifted, but don't worry, it's a 40. Yeah, it's a 45.9. But I lifted when the V box told me the time was up. But compared to the Z06, it's pretty close. I mean, it's got quite a bit different tire.
Yeah.
So, you know, cornering's going to be quite a bit slower, and you know, the Z06, I guess, it's like kind of all that high end power, like high revving power. So I mean, I would say it's closer in feel to a Stingray than a Z06 if you're gonna pick one. But yeah, all the Corvettes are pretty similar. I mean, it's kind of that familiarity you get with like 911s and stuff. And
the lap time landed right between the Z51 and the Z06, right?
Yep. Yeah. So
makes sense.
It was right about, I think, 40? Yes, right between them.
Yeah. So let's switch over to the GT3 Manthey. It looks like it's spelled Manthey. That's what I kept saying before they actually I heard them pronounce it, and I was like, oh, I've been wrong a long time.
Yeah.
So Manthey.
Yeah, it's like Manthey.
And in short, Manthey produces, they're a racing team or racing outfit, but they produce aftermarket parts for Porsches that have a factory warranty, right?
Yeah, so they've been a motorsports. I don't know if partner's the right word, but they've been a Porsche racing team for a long time, and then Porsche bought a control. I think Porsche bought 51% of the business. And then with that, then became like an official motorsports partner, and then that kind of opened the door for road car stuff. And so so now their kits are, I mean, it's they are, you know, they get the blessing of Porsche, and therefore they're kind of factory warranted and available at Porsche dealers, so they are eligible for Lightning Lap.
And this GT3 came decked out with everything from wheels, from suspension, all the aero stuff, and it was like, I think the price for the package was like equivalent to a new Cayman. Right? It's a lot of hardware. It's
new springs, new dampers.
Yeah.
The wheels are like an optional, like they're super lightweight wheels that are optional. The wings larger in the rear. It's got a larger splinter in the front to balance that. It's got dive planes. It's got underbody strakes. You know, it's got the toe strap, you know, sticking out the front, which is like a track day thing. But it's, I mean, it's, you know, they do a lot of testing at the Nürburgring, and you know, you can look up, I mean, the Manthey stuff, you get real performance gains, but it's all chassis and aero, nothing to do with the powertrain.
Most importantly, it looks very cool. But they don't touch the tires though, right?
Yeah, tires are the same. Tires are the same, like the Cup 2R tire.
So all the performance benefit that you see in this lap versus the last GT3 tested is all chassis and aero, right?
Yep.
Which is pretty cool. If I recall right, this thing was a little bit slower on the straights thanks to the aero, but a lot faster in the corners, right?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, exactly. It's all the corner. Oh, and they get you brake pads too.
Okay.
But the rest is the same. yeah, that's kind of my more preferred line there. But in this car was put together by one of the Porsche techs we know who kind of supports stuff. But it was like right out of the box, it just felt awesome. And one of the big advantages it gets in cornering is that the new uprights, I think, get an extra. I think it's an extra half degree of negative camber. Wow. Which obviously, a half a degree is, tiny. Well, for tiny as a number, but it's really substantial for the car.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was. That last. And the cool thing too is that this car is identically spec'd to the one we ran. I don't know, what, 3 years ago.
Yeah,
so it wasn't even like...
It's more even comparison,
it's not even like, it's like, yeah, they're both GT3s. It was like same options, same everything.
Tell me a couple things that stood out to you from what you can remember from that car to this car.
The turn-in.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that's that extra bit of camber, but just like the sense of what it was doing through the wheel was just amazing fidelity through the steering.
Relayed a bit more information back to you.
Yeah.
Give you ultimately confidence, right?
Yep.
And that's so important to these vehicles.
Yeah, and you can see it like the steering I think is identical, so it's not even it's just subtle changes that kind of tweak it and
keep those
maximize
the
refinement. Yeah.
Don't go off to keep the wheels safe. Those wheels are very pretty.
Yeah, the wheels are really cool. They got this like the spokes.
Thing.
The arrow thing on the rear, and then they have the spokes are like, it's like spokes this way, but then there's like spokes kind of in the each spoke coming down is two spokes, right?
Yeah.
So they're kind of like hollow in a sense, but
I think sounds great too.
Yeah. That's good. It's funny. It's like the highlight of those GT cars is and kind of always will be. The engine, but the two that we had this year, it's all about just the chassis.
Ultimately, this pulled out a narrow advantage versus the last GT3, but that's pretty impressive considering no power difference, no tire difference.
Yeah, effectively, it's getting dinged on power.
Yeah,
just because
of the arrow, right?
Yeah, just because it's got a little more drag. But
and you would assume too that with the new hardware on there, it's going to be probably, Porsches are already very good at track days, but this is just an extra sense of durability too for when you go out to tackle it on your own, right?
Yeah, and it'll do it all day. All we ever changed was tires, and that was changing the tires was really only just to maximize the performance. The Cup 2Rs are pretty good, and they'll run a handful of laps at a really high level. But after they kind of fall off, we probably could have run just 2 sets of tires.
Yeah.
But I think we ran 3.
The
other cool thing is that the Manthey stuff. It's a pretty exclusive club, and I know Porsche guys are all about customizing and personalizing their cars, and I have a feeling that once more and more people get the Manthey kits here in the U.S. especially, I know in Europe they have Manthey only days at like the Nordschleife.
Oh, cool.
So I imagine there'll be stuff like that, and
that'll segue us to the next car, because my question is, who's going to have more bragging rights showing up to a track day? A guy showing up with a driver showing up with a GT3 with a Manthey kit on it, or a driver showing up with a GT3 RS? What do you think?
Yeah, it's it's
tough.
I think it depends on what you value and like how much you care about paint to sample colors. But the 3 RS is a pretty special car. For sure.
A lot of adjustability.
Tons of adjustability. Just the dampers alone, it's over 6,000 settings.
My God.
So it's 9. So there's 9 settings, four different ways. So 9 to the 4th is like 65 something. And
not even considering like this thing has adjustable anti-roll bars. Then you can adjust all the
the roll bars isn't on the wheel.
Sure.
But so it's adjustable traction control, adjustable differential, both on and off power.
My God.
yeah, and then damper, and then compression and rebound front and rear, and and then it's got the wing. The wing will open and close automatically if you want. I just left it automatic, same as the transmissions. All three of the cars I drove, the transmissions are all programmed.
It's a lot of options to pick from. So fortunately, Patrick Long was on hand.
Yep.
Who knows a thing or two about Porsches, and he had some recommendations, right?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of started with some settings that they used at the Nürburgring when they were setting times, and then Patrick drove the car on the first day, and then I got in the car after him, and I was like, well, settings are here, and it's funny enough. At Pebble Beach this year, Jerry Seinfeld asked if the car stored all your settings, and I honestly, I was like, I'd driven the car like 3 weeks before that. I was like, I have no idea. I couldn't answer, but I can tell you now that yeah, it'll store the settings, because I just straight stole Patrick's settings. And
if you're watching, Jerry,
yeah,
now you know.
Yeah,
let's watch the lap.
He's not watching.
So again, the sound. This sounds. I can just listen to this on.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, it's an earplug car too.
So good. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, because you hit 9,000 RPM so many times and spend all day, and like it's like the braking.
Yeah.
Super late. I mean, that's as late as I've ever braked in anything.
Really quick into turn one too. It seems like I've watched this lap a bunch. It seems like you have a lot of confidence in this car.
Yeah.
It looks like it, especially in this section here.
Yeah, and this is one of the trickiest corners, because it's you're slowing down, you're turning, you're kind of asking the car to do everything at once.
And that you have that space above the curbing which you want to use. So whether you can, the car transition has to transition nicely over that curbing onto that space. Yeah. Boom. And this car looks like it took the curbing really well.
Yeah, it took the curbing great, and
what was that adjustment you made? Was that traction on the bottom head of the shifter? That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It might have been the HVAC.
Okay.
And that was, I mean, that's about as fast as I ever want to go through the S's.
Yeah.
Something I learned just talking to Nate Curtis, that they don't run motorcycles at the S's just because it's just too hairy. So they only race on the North course.
It's also wild to think that the Garage 56 Camaro was another 25 mile an hour faster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and that's like, yeah, I mean, you get a cage and,
slicks and arrow.
And all that, and yeah,
you can do it.
You can really hustle through there.
That's really fast into there.
Yeah, and it's kind of fast everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is, it's
important for a good lap.
Yeah, exactly. And all the corners too. And I went back and was comparing this to like how the GT2 RS did, and the GT2 RS has like almost 200 more horsepower. I mean, it kind of depends on what power figure you quote, because they actually changed GT2 power.
Okay.
Like this doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I mean, it things that don't matter. So it's basically like 200 horsepower more, but you peel the straights out of it, and this thing is 2.5 seconds quicker around BIR. Like if you eliminate the
straights, that's insane.
The straights advantage, yeah.
That's insane. And it's also a good case for Porsche to make another GT2, right? Hey.
Yeah, you got to imagine there's going to be another GT2, and then you got to imagine that Manthey's going to build stuff for all of them. And
it's not like Porsche's not making turbocharged flat six engines right now.
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty easy recipe. Yeah, that's such a fast lap. How did you feel about this one? Did you know this was the one?
Yeah, this lap felt pretty good from the beginning. It was again, it was like, you kind of start out and I was like the day before I was kind of doing like just a ton of like 241s, just stacking them up.
Yeah.
And then like kind of like looking at the, it's, you kind of go, okay, let me do something a little different in the corner here, a little different in the corner there, and just not seeing the time. And then got up in the morning, went out, was on a pretty good heater, and then caught some traffic, so kind of aborted that lap. But I kind of know, like I always glance at the time coming out of Oak Tree, and I kind of know from there if where I'm at. And I kind of saw, I was like, okay, we're in good shape. So it's so At Oak Tree, I kind of know if it's going to be a good lap or not.
Do you feel like you picked up, because you were 240s, 241s for a while, then jumped down to a 237. Do you feel like you picked up that time everywhere? Was it like one or two specific areas?
Well, it was braking on the back straight,
Yeah.
and in the S's, and just committing to not fully lifting. I mean, you that car will go through the S's dead flat. Patrick Long did it. I'm not going to do it.
He had some, I think, some choice commentary about that experience too, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's you know, and you kind of do it, and then you get out of the car and you go. I mean, Scott Speed was like, "You doing that in a car without a cage and any of that?" And you go,
Scott Speed, that's what it was.
Yeah. Scott's like, that's too fast in a road car, and that's kind of how I feel like. But and then more importantly, it's that corner after that. Is just
turn 10, right?
Turn 10 is I mean, it's right about 100-mile-an-hour corner.
Yep.
In the 3RS, and you know, I mean, you go down to, I mean, a regular 911 might be 90 miles an hour through there, 92, somewhere in there. It's a big.
You're moving.
Yeah, it's moving, and but it's a ton of fun, and again, like, that's a car like you could just do it all day, which is a ton of fun.
Yeah, great year. What are you looking forward to next year?
I mean, like, I haven't thought about it a ton yet, but I know I do want. We tried to get a GR86 Cup car.
That'd be cool.
And those are always. I mean, the stuff like that's always fun.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, it's a race car.
Yeah.
But not super fast.
Yeah.
I don't know what else. I mean, it depends on what comes out between now and then.
For sure.
I mean, maybe whatever the Mondo ZR1 replacement, the Zora, that could be pretty rad. I'm curious to drive the new the updated Taycan Turbo S that improved its Nordschleife time by like 30 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty high up there.
They got Lucid to beat now.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And what did the Lucid? Yeah, just did like a low 40s, mid 46, something like that.
Off the top of my head, I do not remember.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know, it's like all the numbers blend together.
Tony, it was faster. That's it. Yeah.
Tony and I always joke. It's like, the RAM is full. Like there's just no more memory. It's just like, if it's not, ask Tony about a car from the 90s. He'll tell you. He'll tell you what the trunk volume is.
Yeah.
But
once you get past a certain year, it's like, I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but it's always a good time.
Yeah, no, it's employee retention week. That's another one that Tony always says. It's like, I mean, if you had all the money, if you really had all the money in the world,
this is what we do, right?
It would be, well, it's what you do, but it'd be really hard to pull off just because. I mean, it's just so many cars and 3 days at this wonderful track, and and that's like, we don't. We've been doing it 17 years now, which is wild to think. And VIR is always amazing hosts, and it's a week that we always look forward to, for sure.
It's a really cool place. Well, thank you for the commentary, and we're looking forward to it next year, and hopefully many more to come.